What is up, everybody? Matt Moda here to give you some WNBA bangers. We're talking about tomorrow's WNBA betting slate, Friday, July 12th. So recording this early for you guys to get these bangers to lock in. I'm going to have three for you guys to lock in. Of course, before we can get into that, I just want to do a recap of the season. And it's been fine. I'm not going to say it's been great. I'm not going to say it's been terrible. I'm going to say it's been fine. We are slightly in the green up. About 0.39 units, I believe, is the exact number we are up on the season. Every time it feels like we are going on a run, a cold streak happens. Every time we go on a cold streak, then we go on a run. We just really haven't been able to have any sustained success. We have been profitable in our last two WNBA videos. On Wednesday, Wednesday, I gave out 5 plays. I got 3 of those to cash. And then on Tuesday, I only gave out 1 play. That cashed. So we have been in the green in our last 2 videos. Again, we just haven't been able to get any sort of sustained success. Hopefully we are able to do so tonight with these 3 picks that we have. Reminder to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already, like and comment on this specific video. And then I do have a dub club where I send all my plays out. It's $5 a month. It gets you everything that I'm playing texted directly to your phone. So if you're interested, check that out in the link in the description of the video. But let's get into these bangers. So the first game that we're going to talk about is the Aces, and they are playing the Dream, and I'm taking the Aces minus 13. You can get this at minus 110 odds at DraftKings, and I'm going to put 1 unit on all 3 of these plays. So I will say, just to give you a heads up, for these plays tomorrow, they're all going to be main lines. I'm going to have 3 plays. They're all mainline plays. No player props are really out on any of the sports books at the time I am currently recording and putting this out. But the good news is we have been much better on our mainline plays recently, so let's hope that also continues and comes to fruition in this video as well. Obviously, starting with the Aces, who we are taking to cover 13 points. And I get it, 13 points is a massive number, but it's a massive number for good reason. The books know what they're doing here, and I do like riding with the favorite. If you look at the entire season, the Aces, they don't have a great record against the spread. A lot of that was at the beginning of the year. They've been much better recently. They came out of the gate a little slow. They had some injuries. Chelsea Gray returned in mid-June. But if you look at the last 10 games, the last 7 games, the last 5 games, they've been the best team in the WNBA. If you look at the last 7 games specifically, they're 6-1 with the best net rating in the WNBA in that span. Over the last 10 games, they also have the best net rating with the best offense. And over the last 7 games, the 4th best defense. And it really doesn't matter the sample size you look at. The best effective field goal percentage and the best true shooting percentage in the WNBA at any point over the last 10 games. One thing that they have been doing, along with playing really well on offense, is they've also been playing really fast. Over the last 7 games, they've played at the 2nd fastest pace in the WNBA. And if you look at the entire season, they've played at the fastest pace. They've literally been running more than any other team on the entire season. What the Aces love to do, get the ball and run, and because of their potency on offense, because of how good they are on offense, when you combine that with their pace, they can have some really absurdly high scoring games, and they can really put up points in a hurry. You know, you blink, next thing you know, AJ Wilson has 30 points, Kelsey Plume has 25 points. They're just a really good team, and they can really get the route going against teams that are unable to keep up, which is kind of what I see happening to the Atlanta Dream. The Dream have played at the pace that the Dream have played at over the last 7 games. That would be the equivalent of the 2nd slowest pace on the entire season. So they're playing slow, and they've been really bad. So on one side of the ball, the Aces are running and scoring a bunch. On the other side of the ball, the Dream haven't been able to score at all, and then they're also playing really slow. If you look at the last 7 games, the Dream have the 2nd worst net rating in the WNBA with the worst offense in the 8th ranked defense. So they're not above average at anything over the last 7 games. They have the 3rd worst effective field goal percentage and the 2nd worst true shooting percentage. They've been terrible. And really the way I see this game going is the Aces on offense running up and down the floor, being able to score a bunch of points. While the Dream, when they're on offense, trying to slow it down a little bit, but not really being able to keep up. And even as good as the Aces offense has been, the best offense in the WNBA, they've also been really good on defense. They have the 2nd best effective field goal percentage of their opponents, the 2nd lowest, meaning, in the WNBA over the last 7 games. There are really only 2 areas of the floor where the Aces defense is weak and where you want to target them. It's guarding above the break 3-pointers, and it's guarding the non-restricted area of the paint. So not directly under the basket. The non-restricted area is how it's defined. The Dream, they don't shoot in either of those locations. They have the third fewest shot attempts in the non-restricted area of the paint and the second fewest above the break 3-point attempts over the last 7 games. The Aces win this game in or out. Let's hope that happens and they cash out. Our first play. Next up, I'm taking the Fever and Mercury. I'm taking that game to go over 171.5, minus 110 odds. This one is best offered at Bet365. So these two teams did just play a couple weeks ago at the end of June, and the game went slightly under, only 170 total points scored in that one. But if you take away from that and you just look at the matchup, the over is the way to go here. Both these teams love to shoot the 3-pointers, with especially the Mercury, with the Fever having a couple players that like to shoot, not necessarily as their entire team, but they love to shoot or have players that love to shoot, but they also love to run the floor, and they also don't play great defense. That combination, that's a recipe for a bunch of points scored. Now, relying on teams to shoot and make a bunch of 3-pointers, it can end up looking silly from a total perspective if both teams come out cold. Obviously, we're not going to predict that, but if that does happen, then yeah, there's not going to be a lot of points scored. But if you just look at the way that these two teams play, both of them lend themselves towards points being scored and towards the over. Now, neither of them play at quite the Aces level of pace. They're not literally both the fastest team in the WNBA. Only one team can be the fastest, but they both play at above average pace. And the Mercury take the second most above the break 3-pointers in the WNBA and the third most 3-pointers total. Now, the Fever, they don't shoot as much as the Mercury. They're not littered across the board with shooting, but they do have Caitlin Clark, who takes the second most above the break 3-pointers. And they have Kelsey Mitchell, who takes the 12th most on the year, but she's been shooting more recently. If you look at the past 10 games, that ups to the 7th most. So they have two players that like to get shots up. And both of these teams in general play a pace and space type of offense. They have the big hanging around the paint. That would be Brittany Griner for the Mercury, and that would be Aaliyah Boston of the Fever. But they try to surround them with as much pace and shooting as they can. And then on the other side of the ball, neither of these defenses can guard the 3-point line. They're both 1 and 2 in terms of above the break 3-pointers allowed, with the Mercury allowing the most and the Fever allowing the second most. So they're 1 and 2 there. And then if you look at recent stats, like you want to look at the last 10 games, just flip-flop that. The Mercury allowed the second most, while the Fever allow the most above the break 3-pointers. If you just want to look at total 3-pointers allowed, not looking at any specific area of the court, over the last 10 games, the Mercury allowed the most attempted, with the Fever being the third most. So any way you slice it, above the break, 10 games, full season, whatever it may be, two teams that are not good at guarding the 3-point line, going up against two offenses that like to run the floor a little bit and like to take 3-pointers. That generally leads to a ton of points. Unless both teams go cold, this is going to look really dumb, but we're not going to talk about that happening. We're going to assume that they shoot at a league average rate, or that their player average rate. If that happens, the guess here is that this total ends up going over. That's our second play. And then our third and final pick of the video, in a really good game, I'm taking the Storm minus 2.5, minus 120 odds. They are playing against the Lynx, and that's minus 120 at Fanatics. So Storm versus Lynx, Storm as the home team. I'm taking the Storm. I will admit it is end up being a pretty square card today, as I'm going with two favorites in over of my 3 plays. That's kind of just how the board fell to me. But I really, really like backing the Storm in this game. And if you were only to bet one of the 3 plays that I gave out, I would probably put this as my number 1 favorite play. I just think it's a perfect spot to back the Storm, while also being a good spot to fade the Lynx as well. So you put that in one matchup. That's why we have this as my favorite play on the board. Now we'll start with the home team. We'll start with the Seattle Storm. The Storm just happened to be literally the best home team in the entire WNBA. If you look at the entire season, they literally have the best net rating in the WNBA at home. They have a 9-3 record. Now, there are teams with better win-loss records at home, but none of them have advanced stats that look as good as the Storm at home. And that's been the case for a couple years now. Like, I started following the WNBA 2 years ago. That was the case. It was the case last year, even though the Storm kind of stunk last year when they lost some of their best players. And that's been the case this year as well. I think it's enough sample size for it to actually mean something. And they've also been really good recently. No matter what time frame you want to look at, last 10 games, last 7 games, last 5 games, they've been the second best team in the WNBA outside of the Aces. The Storm and the Aces just played a couple days ago. I was on the Storm to cover the spread, and they did, albeit barely, but they still covered. And what's been the Storm's calling card recently is their defense. If you look at that same time frame, either 10, 7, 5 games, whatever it may be, second best defense in the WNBA. They're one spot behind the Lynx. And now they're playing the Lynx, so the Lynx do have the best defense in basically every stat. And I'll get into why I'm fading the Lynx in a second. But the Storm defense has been very, very good. Now, their offense, relatively average in basically all those same stats that we look at, but they do play better on offense at home. And I really do like fading the Lynx in this matchup. Again, the Lynx have been still really good on defense. That's carried over, but they've really struggled on offense, especially where they were at the beginning of the year. And they're most likely going to be without their best player, Nafisa Collier. She missed last game. Now, they did win and cover last game, and I was on them to win and cover, so thank you for that. But that was against the Sparks, horrible team. And the Lynx just aren't the same team without her. She's got the best plus-minus on the team. That's not a surprise. And you take her off the court, the Lynx are average, which actually it's kind of impressive, the fact that they are average without their best player. But their net rating with her off the court is plus 3.4. That's closer to average than anything, which, yeah, that's fine. But that plus 3.4, that would be 6th in the NBA, completely average. And average isn't going to get it done with how well the Storm are playing. So I really like backing the Storm here, -2.5, -120 odds as our third and final pick of the video. And that's all we got. 3 bangers for you guys to lock in. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe. Remember to check out the Dub Club if you're interested. I appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.